Hey everybody, sorry. I wish we could go longer. I like to talk to Tom especially, so this will be a little bit longer. But we're getting there. We're kind of winding into, how he's developed his process. And if you kind of hang in there, we'll just keep talking with Driscoll. And we'll keep digging into his story. Hopefully he gets back on here. So if anybody has any questions for Tom, it's a really good time. I mean, he's not a big social media tech person, so we've got him here and he's available to answer questions. I hope he gets back on here. Might take him a minute. Just keep in mind that tomorrow we're going to be talking to Bucky, one of the original radio members for Bread and Salt. Thank you, people, for coming back, too. I know it's kind of a pain. You're back.
What?
And so one of the things I was thinking about, Richard Allen Morris just had a small kind of solo exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art of all these found timbers that I know at that time you guys were digging in the construction sites and junk piles, and you're finding stuff.
They had a wrecking ball, a truck, and they knocked this building down, this little building, in one day. And they hosed it down to keep the dust down. But when I got home from work, I think Richard was inside. There was this debris all over, just like a bomb had blown up. And the smell of this damn wood, with all these splintering pieces of timber.
Right.
Wood. So my recollection was I went up and knocked on his door and I said, Richard's a whole bunch of stuff over there. We got to check it out. So we went down there and ended up taking all these pieces up to his studio. It was great wood, and which became a series for him.
Yeah, and a couple decades later, they've shown it just recently at the Museum of Contemporary Art, and I know they've kept some for their permanent collection. So,
yeah, funny story. There used to be a thrift store in that building, and he used to shop there. Yeah, so I wanted to go ahead.
I just want to talk about also just more of your experiences downtown. I know also you were in the Church Street lofts on 10th and E, where a lot of other artists ended up. Barbara Sexton, Isabel Dutra, I think, was there, and Jason Lane, Margaret Noble. So many people over the years and years and years have ended up at the Church Street lofts.
Yeah, I had a little break. I wanted to get a different studio, and I talked to the woman who was managing it, Lynn Engstrom. I went down and checked out a space, and next thing you know, I was on the second floor on 10th and E, making these big cement cones that you've seen. A perfect place to work.
Yeah. Is one behind you one of the pieces that you made at the Church Street loft?
Yeah, same idea.
I know there's one of those pieces, like the big one behind you, this orb, where you embedded a speaker, and at that time you were, like Michael was saying, you dropped a microphone out of your window on 10th and E, and you were recording the street sounds.
Well, one morning I was working and I heard all this commotion down below. There was two guys that were screaming at each other, big argument, throwing things and just nasty talk. So I said, I gotta get this recorded. So I lowered a microphone from a cheap cassette player and just dropped it down like some kind of spy.
Yeah.
Turned it on and went back to work.
That's too funny.
What I got was amazing. Just not only the bus and the traffic coming by, but they started cutting the jacaranda trees. And everything echoes downtown because you have the buildings. So it just echoed like crazy. And it's all on my tape. And so that's just one incident of being downtown that may bother some people, but.
So you were just also like not just working with your hands, you were experimenting with, field recordings and things like that. You were just kind of playing around this like idea something that I feel like a lot of artists do. They have this childlike sense of investigation constantly. All artists do.
Yeah, it goes back to stabbing that bird of paradise. Like,
Right.
let's say a piece of fruit is rotting somewhere, you look at it, you look at it and maybe get an idea.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I remember you had a kind of a cactus ear nailed to the side of your house with a little tuna fruit on the side that was just there for years. And we would talk about it every time I was over there.
Yeah, they take a long time to die. They just hang there and they just dry up. It takes years.
Yeah. I know, also talking about spaces and also just this connection to, this feeling of artists and space and time in San Diego. When we had our gallery on 30th and Upas, there used to be this is before all the building and stuff that's happened over there, but this is before us. I'm just trying to put in a place and time. You also occupied that block. You had a studio on that same block way before Ice Gallery. Like
I did. Yeah, I was there like 2000, 2098, I guess, to 2000. And it was a storefront, a big storefront with a pretty high ceiling next to a bar and a taco.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably Smoking Goat is the name of the restaurant now, or or something like that.
My space turned into a really nice place to eat.
Right. I think I've eaten there with you maybe before. I don't know.
Yeah, I went back and checked the bathroom out. But
but so what's it been like?
Nobody knew I was there, Tom. I never had any signs or any indication that an artist was there. No one knew I was there. That's the way I was. I go to work, close the door, go across the street to buy some materials at that place that sold
Pat's Corner.
Yeah. So it was a good spot. It's like $400 a month.
Right. What's it been like just kind of bouncing around and having this need to have a studio where you can make stuff? And what was the transition into working at home? Why did you finally decide to just abandon the studio? And Melissa just asked a question too. Sorry, I'm jumping around. Do you miss having a studio space? Do you miss having a studio and a space with other artists? Excuse me.
Not really. Not really.
Good answer.
I think the big thing that with me is bread and salt. You, Michael, Lee Levy.
Yeah.
And getting connected with you guys and Jim and Isabel.
Yeah.
Thanks to Michael Armstrong, who is a big fan of my work. Anyway.
Right.
So he kind of got me in, and I met all these people.
Yeah, and artists, I feel like we all split this generational divide. Like if you speak this art language or have this love of art, it doesn't matter if there's a big age gap there. I'll hang out with you and talk about art, and it doesn't matter.
You remember that time I walked down you were artist in resident,
and
bread and salt wasn't really totally refined yet.
Right, we didn't have a big complete plan.
No, I had a bunch of steel balls.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 steel balls. And I said, Tom, can I throw these steel balls at your wall?
Through a wall that I just built.
And he said, sure.
Yeah,
do whatever you want. So Michael brought a little stool, put it down. I had my steel balls.
Right.
And like a baseball pitcher, I'd wind up and throw this. They were hardened steel balls.
Mm-hmm.
They just go boom.
Yeah.
And I wasn't throwing them hard enough to get through the 2 layers of drywall.
Mm-hmm.
And drop down in between the wall.
Right.
It had one steel lead ball about the size of a golf ball. So I reared back, and you had your camera, and and I threw that thing, and it went right through the wall and ricocheted off the back. Now, what inspired me to do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, same for me too, though. I mean, just having you over into my studio that was in the residency space, and we were taking it serious. It wasn't just like, let's go demo this thing. It was this power of
Really?
observation where we were taking this moment where you had an idea. I had just constructed a wall and done the skim coating and painting, and it was this situation where you saw that there was a clear void between a wall, and it became this kind of dialogue back and forth on how and what would happen, and and it became
Yeah, but I would.
static. It became a static artifact of performance, and
But
that moment actually has
knowing,
stuck with me for a long
yeah,
time, and it informed me for sure. Actually, just this
but knowing
artifact
knowing
of
you,
performance.
knowing you, and being friends with you, I had no qualms about asking you if I could do this
Right.
because you're open to all kinds of
Yeah, and
ideas, right?
I've learned that just from working with so many different artists and hanging out with different artists over the years. It is about this kind of like free association and free moment of just creativity.
Yeah.
If you try to have too rigid of a structure, you're not going to learn shit. Nobody's going to
Remember
learn
that?
anything.
Remember the football throwing incident where I was throwing?
Right.
I had a football where I put graphic powder on the end of the football, and here again it was your wall,
Yeah.
and I put paper on the wall in the corner, and I threw these footballs,
Right.
and they would bounce off the wall and leave a impression. And
Yeah, and at that time, I was trying to figure out what I was doing, and that basically informed my mark making that I've been doing for years now. It was out
hang
of
on,
this kind of excitement to just kind of use the wall as a device, and also
yeah,
this ability to
hang
make.
on, I'll show you a piece. It's right here. So I thought they were really kind of interesting. These are. This was actually an ink print of a collapsed football.
Man, that
And
is so cool.
but same kind of idea where you've got surfaces that will pick up whatever's on the thing you throw or push down.
Right. I mean, especially just non-traditional. You don't need to carve a stamp or a
Ah,
wood block or something. Anything is fair game as far as you're concerned. Is
ah,
there anything else in the studio you can show us, or anything around?
sure. Oh yeah, these are fun. These are
Wow. So I know Melissa mentioned earlier because of you were talking about getting trophies as a kid and stuff like that. Tell us about the trophies you've been doing. You can bring that closer to the camera. So,
can
I
you
know
see the whole?
every time I'm at a thrift store and I see a trophy, I'm like calling you, Tom, you got to come see these trophies.
Yeah, I don't know what got me started on the trophies. Started with one little alteration of a trophy, and then it kept magnifying. So now I'm into little complex compositions,
Wow.
and these are a bunch of bowlers. So,
So that's just prepped for gluing. The zip ties are
yeah,
not.
that's all ready to go. I have to do some pinning, drilling and pinning to make it solid. And then there's a dipping process where I use resin.
Wow.
So I want to make sure. Here's one.
Oh my gosh, that color is so good. I love it.
Yeah. Can you see the top of this?
No, if you hold it down, bring it down a little bit. There you go. Man, that's so cool. So cool. The unifying of color is such a strategy that you've taken, and a lot of other artists like Louise Nevelson has taken that to the extreme of either white or black. But where did you first realize that unifying color can kind of, do something for a sculpture?
Well, I didn't want to get really. I didn't want to get too far out there with color. I wanted to keep the subject and the object pretty well. That's primary focus. So the
Right.
color I thought had to be my favorite green and
Right.
my favorite red, and that's pretty much it. There's some variations of that, but
I know you look to some found objects to like a favorite object color that you might find and you might try to replicate. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, these colors you're using, those are like industrial colors. That's like an international orange kind of color right there.
Well, it took some time to figure out the colors. Like when I bought the resin, it arrived and it wasn't the right color. It was too orange, so I had
Can
to
you show that sculpture again? Can you show that as you're talking about it? So can you explain coming across and creating the colors?
The colors.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
The color, it's polyester resin, right? And I ordered it from this company, and they mix it. They pre-mix it, but it was too orange, so I had to add some red to make an actual red.
Hmm.
And then the dipping process is pretty detailed. I have to get it just right. And when I dip, I don't dip them. I actually put it on with a brush and let it drip, and then let it set up.
Mm-hmm.
There's other processes too. But,
So they end up it coated in kind of a resin. It's not just like the bottle sculpture behind me or something.
Oh,
These
no,
I know you're applying with a paintbrush very meticulously.
yeah, it's serious gel coat resin.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's really thick, sometimes two coats, gel coat doesn't set up at room temp. So you have to let it set up and where it gets tacky, and then you have to add a water-based paraffin to seal it from oxygen, and then it sets up. I had to research it.
It's so funny that you weren't interested in kind of academics as a kid, but it's probably because you weren't being challenged. Do you know what I mean? Because yeah. I know for myself, when I've asked you for guidance in mold making or for some kind of chemistry, whether it's concrete or resin, you always have an answer, but it's through trial and error that you've kind of arrived at this situation. Yeah. And I know that you and I have gone to, say, Atlas Chemical, which has recently closed, but we bought powdered pigments, and we went there because I needed a black pigment. I needed a black powdered pigment for some concrete, and I'm like, who can help me? Tom Driscoll can help me. This is a few years ago. Yeah. But we went to Atlas Chemical, which is an industrial chemical supplier that was on Commercial Boulevard, or on Commercial. We go in there, and they have this super old analog computer system with the green screen and the little green letters.
Yeah.
And they were like, what's your name? And you're like, Tom Driscoll. I haven't been here in a few years or whatever. They were like, oh, Tom Driscoll, you're in our system. You were here in 1980 or whatever.
That was so weird.
Buying powdered pigment from an industrial supplier. So, I mean, you've been dealing in chemistry and figuring this stuff out for decades. And your method is...
Devastated. They actually closed. They closed, and I couldn't get my powdered pigment from there anymore. Yeah. But that was too bad. Yeah.
Right. I guess I'm just kind of getting at this like ability that you have to kind of learn things your way, whether it's chemistry or engineering or whatever, you know?
Now, some people ask me if I have ever taught before. Do you teach? And so I never have taught before. But in a way, I am teaching.
Well, you've taught all of us. You've taught Michael and Lee Levy, and Joseph.
And Appleton would come over all the time. Tom, how do I mix the cement where it's not so runny? You know, how do I said, well, you got to make sure your water's at the right temperature and get the bubbles out. Oh, okay. So he was always picking my brain for, basically it's like being a chef or a cook. You just know how to throw in this spice and this spice, and you make it work. And the next time it's pretty fail-safe.
Something that I love about you is that you're not afraid to share your secrets. So many people see it as a downfall, sharing what they're working on or how to do something. And you've never been like that. You've always been open to a stranger to share your process. And
what's to keep a secret, you know, because a lot of people, they haven't a clue how to mix a cup of plaster.
Right.
They haven't. Well, what do I do? How much water do I add? I'm not quite sure.
So you've never been afraid of sharing a secret. You never thought that it would be anybody being able to um, copy you or anything like
Yeah.
that.
When I was at Southwestern College, I got into resin. I was kind of known as a resin king. And other students would always ask me, how do you mix resin? It's nasty, it's stinky. You
Right.
have to add the right catalyst. So I would kind of help them. And this one student, she wanted to put a hard-boiled egg, cast it into a smoky colored cube. And I said, boy, that's not going to work. It's going to explode. You know?
Whoa.
But she pulled it off. It was this egg suspended in the resin. So,
That egg is probably still suspended.
I don't know how she did it.
So just kind of getting us up to date, where are you now, and what are you working towards, and what has happened because of this whole quarantine situation? I know you were working towards a new ice gallery show at the new ice gallery inside Bread and Salt. Michael asked you to do a show there.
That's on hold, of course.
Right.
But
you were making new works.
Stuff over there, as you can see.
Oh my God!
So
Look at that
ready.
color.
Ooh, yeah.
I know we don't want to give all the secrets away, but are you postponing it till next year, or what were you thinking? Or
I have no idea.
but you're still working in the studio every single day, right? Like, I know that's just part of what you do.
Things really haven't changed for me. I've always been a stay-at-home guy in the studio. I haven't gone out very much, and so I don't feel as much as maybe others feel about being restricted, not being able to drive around or mix it up. So
Yeah.
I cope pretty well, but I can't go out. I mean, artist friends have said to me, you know, stay at home, Tom, don't go out.
Right.
I said, yeah, you're right. So also, where I'm at right now, I'm thinking a lot about age because there's more years behind me than ahead of me, as they say. So I worry a little bit about getting really old, you know, and that's not too far away, you know.
How old are you?
I'm 75 years old.
You look fucking great.
So in 5 years, am I going to be walking around and jumping around and being able to saw pieces of wood and mix cement?
Why the hell not?
It's hard, physically.
I mean, how old's Bob Matheny, you know?
Bob's 91?
Yeah, I mean, Bob, up until the last few months, I mean, Bob was doing whatever the hell he wanted, you know?
Bob's amazing.
Yeah, so you have plenty of years left to go, but I don't think anybody should be sleeping on collecting your work. You know, now's the chance to be snatching up that work that you have, because, you know, who knows?
But that's sort of those thoughts. I never had ever thought about chronological time in my life. Where you at? I did have I call it a life. I marked down all the events in my life, put it in a protractor image.
Right.
And starting with birth and this and that. I'm way over here now. Whoa. So that's a new one for me, is thinking about death, basically. You know, is it going to be good, bad, indifferent?
But that's a daily activity, and that's the weird thing about this kind of virus happening right now, is that, you know, all the average folks are thinking about that kind of stuff. And, you know, you could step off a curb and get flattened by a bus at any moment. So,
but when you're older, like, you could just touch the door handle and touch your nostril and, you know, boom.
Right. I do have a couple questions here. Are there common characteristics in the materials you find interesting? So is there a correlation between anything that you find? Is there something common in the materials you find interesting? like say resin or metal or
Yeah, liquid to solid.
liquid to solid. Man, you just nailed it. That's really great that you
Like
just said that.
I love to see a liquid uh, material transform itself into a solid mass.
Wow.
You get this, flowing stuff, and then an hour later you come out and demold the thing, and God, jeez,
Man, I
so
feel
much.
like sorry. I feel like you just quantified your whole thing, liquid to solid, because so
Yeah,
many of your works are, cast or, they're coated or
I'd
something.
say 80% of my process is casting.
Yeah.
It's weird. I just like, for instance, this is like a ray gun.
Nice.
It's cast from a toy packaging that Richard Allen Morris gave me.
Right.
And I said, boy, I got to cast that one right away. So that's liquid to solid or nothing to a solid object.
That's great that you got that from Richard. If anybody knows Richard Allen Morris's work or they want to look it up, Richard did a gun series in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, 90s of
He saved me all of these molds. They're all dusty and dirty. Here, you might be able to use these.
yeah, I mean, there's talking about the guns in particular. Can you I mean, a fucking gun, like what's the intention of a gun? They're meant to kill people, but also with this,
I cast a whole series of guns in there. I really can't show them right now. I mean, people are a little. There's one over here. It's so realistic. Look at this.
right, but that that form alone reminds me of like a 1950s detective noir novel.
Yes,
kind
exactly.
Of,
Yeah, like in your pocket. But it's just a casting from a toy,
right.
you know.
But going into like, especially with that last kind of ray gun piece or the bowling sculptures, Michael is
Yeah.
asking, or he's basically saying, work often has a lot of humor. Is that intentional? So with those guns, like a ray gun and stuff like that, I mean, your sense of humor, especially with the trophy sculptures, is it intentional or is it just part of what you do?
It evolves. Like when I'm making the sculptures, they fit together the way you just play with them until they fit together properly. And sometimes you have a crazy scene where you've got a bowler that's entangled with some other person.
Right.
So I said, oh God, I'm laughing at these things.
All of a sudden, bowling becomes like a contact sport.
Yeah. There's a trophy over here where it's a woman golfer and she's swinging a golf club.
Can you show us?
But, yeah. She has a guy that's.
Yeah, I mean the right angle too, just having like a person.
That's funny because what's this guy
like,
doing?
It's like a swing dancing trophy or something.
Yeah, and there's no golf club. I took it off, and he's also a golfer, but it's so grouped that you can't. They're all blended together.
Yeah,
So
you're taking that sports element out of the context, and all of a sudden you're left with the gesture of these people.
Yeah. It's a funny title. I can't think of it. Funny. What else is there? There's one that is destined for you.
Yes. I know I kept making plans to go over there, and then this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, that's mine. Nobody else can have that.
It's just a ball of string that's been stuck on this guy, gooped up.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I have a Bob Matheny story to tell you really quick.
Yes.
When I was a student, I took one of his classes. I don't know what class it was, but he said, we'll be doing a floating sculpture next week. I want you to make sculpture that floats. we'll take them up to the little pond in administration building. There's a little courtyard, small pond. And we'll float them. So it was a great class because people came to class with these strange things with gourds and glass balls and oddball things. And we took them up to the administration area, put them in the pond, and just let them float around. And they were banging against each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were some workers that would come by and just stare. And Bob would say, floating sculpture, floating sculpture. Trying to explain, what is this madness? But I don't know if he remembers that or not. But it was
I don't know, and I would love to interview Bob, but I know his health isn't what it was, and I would love to figure out a way to talk to Bob, and his hearing isn't great, so it's hard to do a live conversation. But
I have fond memories. I have fond memories of Bob's courses. He taught a plastics class. I guess he initiated having plastics class.
I know that Bob also through the military and stuff, he traveled the world and had taught in LA and then got the job at Southwestern. So, I feel like San Diego's kind of like this game of telephone where, we kind of end up at the end of the line with some people that have stuck it out in San Diego. And, it's this important stepping stone to get around to all these different stories. And it's important that, sometimes people stay here and inform the new people. And it's like, if people like you weren't around or some of these other well-established older artists weren't around to tell these stories, I think these younger generations would just feel like they're destined to leave and San Diego again would be left to be without nothing.
I had a little support system in the early days. Mark Quint was great. He would always mention my name to somebody who wanted to have a show. Check out Tom Driscoll. He's a good sculptor.
Yeah, so that's the first place I saw your work was at Quint.
Yeah, he would mention my name,
Right.
And I'd get a call. So that helped.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Mark too. I haven't reached out to them, but it'd be fun to have just a kind of
he was sort of the quiet supporter. He wouldn't really yell out your name, but he would,
Yeah. Well, San Diego, we don't have a lot of spaces, but yeah, he's a great one.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we're missing that we wanted to talk about or kind of cover? I know, we talked about you growing up and also how you kind of discovered some materials and how you've arrived at your art practice a little bit.
Well, the first 8 years, I'm sure it was the water environment that influenced me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in a dock, laying down on a dock in Mission Bay. It was a kind of lifeguard station, a small dock, and I was looking over the side, and there was the sun was hitting the water on the other side, and there was this beautiful rays of light shooting down this green liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were also little fish that were poking around.
Yeah.
That's, to me, fantastic.
Yeah. So that moment has kind of stuck with you.
Yeah, it's still a bit of memory. Just looking at it, there's I remember a little fish that lives in the moss underneath the dock. It just kind of pokes around.
Yeah, so I'm remembering a piece, one of the early moments that I got to work with you. I was just a hired installer for the Omni Hotel Art Gallery.
Great story.
But, that's when I got to work with, I think this is before I worked with you at the Contemporary Museum. It was, but you were doing a show with Richard. I think it was through R.B. Stevenson or the San Diego Art Prize or something. But
Art Prize, yeah.
And I got to work with a lot of artists one-on-one in that situation. That was pretty cool that they hired me to install all the work.
That's when I first really met you, because Patricia Fisher was running the art prize, and she hired you, I guess, to install.
Lee Levy was the gallery manager kind of person or desk person. So Lee had made the recommendation.
Anyway, I arrived, and you're kind of standing there in the corner by yourself, not saying anything. You might have been holding a drill. I remember.
Yeah, or I'm just being,
Yeah,
waiting for you guys to make a decision.
this is Tom DeMello. He's going to be helping you install. Hi, Tom.
Yeah.
And pretty soon.
Yeah, that gallery was pretty funky. I mean,
It
not
was
a big
awful.
deal. I don't know what to say about it, but
I remember
they
Jay Johnson had a piece, and they put a bouquet of flowers right in front of his piece, I think.
yeah, I mean
For
that gallery is no longer there. It was part of that kind of 1% required art for a new construction. So they had like their Omni Hotel, and then they had their 1% of gallery space, which really was a lobby into the buffet kind of area. So, but I got to install lots of great shows. I got to install and work with, by myself, Kim McConnell, Brian Dick, Matt Devine, so many people. And it was kind of like me and Lee were there, and Lee was just doing his desk stuff, and I was doing all the install and along with the artists. It was really cool. And that was a side gig for me. I was also working at the Contemporary Museum. So I was, always kind of hustling, trying to be involved in the arts. Yes.
Had you gotten hired? Yeah. Had you been hired yet for the museum?
I was also working at the Contemporary Museum, so I was pulling a double shift. I remember one time Lee is the one that was hiring me, but he hired me. It might have been for your show. I can't remember. But Lee told me I could park in the ballpark space right there for the Omni Hotel, and I'm installing work inside there. Next thing I know, I turn around. I had a van. I had an 84 Toyota van. It got towed right outside the gallery. And I only made probably like $100 for all my work there. It was like a
You have to watch Lee.
Yeah, it was like a prepaid kind of gig, and then I got my car towed. I think I had to have my stepdad come and help me get it out of the tow yard, and it was like $400 or something to get it out.
Yeah, I love Lee. He was installing at the Museum of Contemporary Art these 500 pieces, and he's about halfway through. We're all doing it. And he dropped a piece.
I was just gonna say, how many did he break?
Very blue casting. He went. Sounded like a plate breaking. He said, "Oh, Tom, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry." It just flipped out of me. I said, "Don't worry about it. I have them all. I'll have a clone here in 2 days." There was another one.
Well, you definitely have like a more lax sensibility for kind of chewing somebody out in a bad situation, but
he was kind of really upset. No problem.
Well, as an art prepared or art installer, I mean, it's the worst case scenario. What the fuck, you break a Francis Bacon painting or something.
But the odds are that you're going to drop 1 out of 500. I mean, it's just going to happen.
That was a big piece, and the Museum of Contemporary Art ended up buying a section of that work that you kind of
they bought like 1/5 scale of a piece.
Don't ask me why they didn't buy the whole fucking thing. I mean,
it's in storage somewhere, Chula Vista. Hopefully it's doing well.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But that's a great place where people can probably see your artwork in the future. And I just was looking at your website, which I know Michael has helped you do your website. It's tomdriscollart.net is what it is. It's not a .com, it's a .net. So I suggest people go there and check out your work. And you're also on Instagram. You've been adding stuff all the time to your Instagram so people can see your work there. And I'm not sure if you'd want to, but you can also add work to our artist store, and you could get 100% of the proceeds of the sale. I'm not sure if you'd be interested in doing that, but
I'm in the process of photographing some small things, so
cool.
That'll be good for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great way for the community to support an artist directly. It's money going directly to the artist, and then you get a great work in between. So
money's tight, face it.
Right. I mean, I'm sure for yourself, you're also on a fixed income. You and your wife, Elena, you guys have fixed incomes. You're retired from the workforce, and you're relying on friends to bring you food at this time. You're not going out, right?
Well, a couple of times Trader Joe's, but we're heavily masked.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say we're gonna end this video. We're at an hour and a half, so that's been great to really talk with you and get to know you better. And I hope a lot of people that didn't know you are able to learn something and look up your work. So yeah, and also just so people know, we have the Bread and Salt website where they can pre-order the Ponca book. There's 2 different versions on the Bread and Salt website. It's on the tab. You can just pick book and that'll take you there. You can buy work from Ponca's store that has work from our gallery, and also go to the artist store and they can see more artist stuff, including Tom's hopefully really here soon here.
Well, thank you, and thanks for Bread and Salt.
Yeah, it's Jim and Isabel, and they're really just adamant about us trying to reach the community at this time and keep in contact. So thank you.
Bread and Salt's kind of the hub. It's the hub right now, I think. It really is.
What is?
Bread and Salt.
Bread and Salt is the hub.
The hub.
I mean, it's the place I go to for art for sure. I see you have a cat behind you too.
Oh yeah.
I have to show you the newest member of my household. Her tongue's out and everything. Look at this.
Is that new?
This is my mom passed away a little while ago, and I inherited her dogs. So this is
that tongue always kind of hanging?
This is my mom's dog. I call her Pig. So she's napping right now. But yeah. So I have a lot of dogs here all of a sudden. But yeah. I'm very grateful that you were able to talk with me today, Tom, and hang out.
Good questions.
Cool. And
all right.
I hope to see you in person soon and see your studio and get back to normal and all that. So
yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
I'm gonna end the video and thank you very much.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. So everybody, if you want to see more of these videos, we're adding them to YouTube all the time. Bucky from the original Bread and Salt radio station is going to be here tomorrow. She's going to be talking about her early experiences at Bread and Salt with Anna Brown and Bob Green. We can tell a lot of stories. And after that, it's going to be Beth Ross Buckley from Camerata and Adam John Manley. We're also trying to schedule Aaron Skolman. So we're going to be talking to a lot of other people, and we're adding stuff all the time. So yeah, thank you, everybody. And make sure you go and check out the Bread and Salt Artist Store. It's so imperative at this time when all of us are, feeling it. There are a lot of artists have lost their day job and they need extra income. There's a lot of work that's really affordable. Some of it as low as $40, $45 or $50. So all of that makes a difference. And if everybody can just buy one work a month or something, think about what that means to put a couple $100s into an artist's pocket that has no employment. Some people might not even be able to apply for unemployment at this time. So it's important to support everybody. Thank you for watching. And this is a long one. I hope everybody hung in there. So bye-bye.